Akropong, Ghana, in Western Africa. Chicago, Illinois, USA. St. Petersburg, Russia, in Eastern Europe. Gitwansilk, British Columbia, in Canada. San Luis Potosi, Mexico. They are communities thousands of miles from each other, populated by people of different races, different languages, and different customs. Yet these diverse people share many similarities. In fundamental ways, their cultures, the way a people live their lives, the way they see the world and their place in it, and the things they make and use, are alike. For one thing, these cultures and all others are made up of groups. The core group of all societies is the nuclear family. A parent, or parents, and their children. The nuclear family may vary in size, of course. In some countries, religious and cultural traditions, economic conditions, and other factors may foster large families, while in other countries, just the opposite may be the case. Beyond the nuclear family lies the extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, as well as parents and their children. In cultures such as those found in southern Ghana, members of the extended family often live together in compounds, a number of houses built closely to each other, generally around a central courtyard. Members of the extended family often work as an economic unit, doing various household chores, such as washing dishes and watching over the family's animals. They also may gather and prepare food, as well as tend the family plot. A group of extended families makes up a clan, and many clans may make up a tribe. Young Nisga'a Indians in British Columbia learn very early, for instance, that their tribe is divided into 4 clans: wolves, ravens, killer whales, and eagles. Besides family groups, cultures also have groups based on levels of education. In many third world countries, those with less advanced economies and technologies, people with an elementary education may form an elite group. On the other hand, in high-tech cultures, those with complex economies, individuals with a grade school education form a group far down on the educational attainment ladder. In those societies, a college degree is necessary for many, but certainly not all occupations. Which leads us to a third kind of group found in almost all cultures, those based on the kind of work individuals pursue. As one would expect, there are many occupational groups in technologically based, economically complex cultures, as well as many subdivisions of those groups. For example, a physician could be a pediatrician who takes care of children, or a cardiologist who specializes in caring for people with heart problems, or a gerontologist whose specialty is caring for the elderly, and so on. In third world countries, the range of occupational groups is relatively limited. There are laborers, gatherers and farmers, vendors, and those who run small businesses. There also may be educators and others in professional groups, but their numbers are smaller than those of their counterparts in economically and technologically complex societies. And there are fewer subgroups. Social groups, In addition to family, educational attainment and occupational groups are also found in virtually all cultures. Social group members may have similar interests, such as charitable activities, recreational preferences, political affiliations, age, or many other things, including religious beliefs. Church socials, where people of similar religious convictions gather, are a time-honored tradition in many North American communities. Whether family, occupational, social, or any other kind, groups are not the only thing all societies have in common. Another important similarity is the seemingly universal need to express emotions, ideas, and information. Language, particularly oral language, is the most common way ideas, information, and emotions, including delight, are expressed.
Sí, ¿verdad que sí? Bueno, vámonos a una y más, un corte comercial, ¿eh?
Language is found virtually everywhere.
Okay, this time when Victor gives the speech, I want him to use more emotion.
Written language is found in almost all cultures. The use of digital languages has become one of the most prevalent in technologically based cultures, and has spread to yet another way to express ideas, information, and emotions: the arts. Traditional art forms are still found in high-technology societies, of course, but they are more likely to be the major forms of artistic expression in cultures in which computers have not made such deep inroads. Traditional art forms vary from one location to another. A Nisga'a master carver in British Columbia makes a totem pole, an art form based on religious beliefs. A weaver in Ghana makes an intricately woven kente cloth, whose abstract patterns may symbolize mythical and historical events, while elaborate statues and gold leaf carvings in a Mexican cathedral call to mind the European religious experience. The differences can be explained, at least in large part, by different levels of technologies. And by historical events. The artwork in many Mexican churches reflect that culture's Spanish and native roots. The performing arts, such as dance, are still another form of artistic expression found in virtually all cultures. Native Canadian dancers, as well as their counterparts to the South in the United States, often use dance to portray events found in nature and to explain the supernatural. The accompanying music combines the vocal, that is, singers, and the percussive, or drums. Music is still another performing art found in all societies. As with other facets of culture, differences in musical instruments can be attributed to the availability of materials. The Nisga'a use tree trunks and sticks for musical instruments, because those materials are readily found in the heavily forested areas in which they live. Akan musical instruments are also primarily wooden, because tropical rainforests cover a large part of Akan lands. In some societies, such as Russia, the performing arts take on such an important role that special schools have been built to train children as performing artists. At the tender age of 8 or 9, children recite poems they've written, and then perform musical interpretations of that poetry, interpretations they've composed. So far, we've seen that all cultures are composed of groups, and all of them have different ways to express ideas, information, and emotions through language, art, and the performing arts. All cultures also have ways to obtain food for their members. As you can well imagine, geography plays a key role in what kinds of food are obtained. For untold centuries, for instance, the Nisga'a have depended on the Nass River that flows through their lands to provide salmon, a major part of their diet. Methods of preparing and preserving food also may take traditional forms in some cultures. Nisga'a women cut and clean salmon outside a smokehouse, and then the fish are placed on wooden racks inside. After the fish are hung, a fire is lit, and smoke begins to fill the room. The fish are smoked for about 24 hours, then cut into strips, and then smoked again to be completely preserved. Some foods do not need to be preserved, of course, nor are they hunted or fished. In some areas, such as Ghana, where food is readily found in the rainforest, gathering may be an important means of obtaining nourishment. Raising animals and crops are two other ways cultures obtain food, other than gathering, fishing, and hunting. The Akan combine raising animals and tending crops. They are also herders and shoppers. In fact, most cultures do combine several methods to obtain food. That includes the Nisga'a. From time to time, they travel to nearby towns to fill in nutritional gaps. It is much the same for many Mexicans who live outside large cities. They herd, farm, and ranch. But most also find it necessary to shop. In urban cultures such as the United States, only a tiny minority of people farm, ranch, or fish. Almost none hunt commercially. Fewer still use gathering as a way to obtain food. Agriculture is highly mechanized in these societies, and complex distribution systems rush food products to local markets, markets that are almost always regulated and inspected by governmental authorities. All cultures have governments, too. Governments often play a major role in the daily lives and security of their citizens. Even so, governments may differ significantly. In Ghana, for example, governmental affairs at the local and regional levels are undertaken by an elaborate system of chiefs and sub-chiefs. The system, developed over many centuries, helps maintain an intricate set of rules for tribal, clan, and individual behavior. Leadership posts are handed down from one generation to the next. Ghanaians also have a national government, but it has little to do with their everyday lives. On the other hand, the national government in the United States wields enormous power. Laws passed in the legislative branch, executive orders from the White House, and Supreme Court rulings may have wide-ranging impact on the imposition of justice, the health of the economy, civil rights, international relations, and much more. Leaders are elected by ballot in the United States, which has a long history of government by, for, and of the people, a tradition transported across the Atlantic from England, carried by colonists who established communities in North America. Mexicans live under a more authoritarian system because, for one reason, the Spanish who colonized Mexico lived under a monarchy, not in a democratic system of government. Russians, too, traditionally have lived under autocratic rulers, communists, and before them, monarchs. Russia's halting attempts to create a democratic system of government show how difficult it is to change a culture's traditions. Providing education for children is one of government's most important functions, regardless of the type of government or where it's located. In fact, all cultures have ways to pass on from one generation to the next what it regards as important information about the past, and what it considers important values, ideas that guide behavior, beliefs, and views of the world. Passing on important information and values to the next generation is the fourth way in which all cultures are similar. In most places, parents assume a key role in the passing of information and values to their children. They may do it verbally, by example, or through literature, oral or written. In Niska culture, mothers and aunts pass on to their daughters and nieces traditional methods of preparing salmon.
Okay, now you cut right down the bone. Remember you watched Mommy? Okay, cut down on the bone there. And glide your knife down. Careful.
Fishing skills are handed down from father to son.
Straight over.
In Akan culture, ways to perform household chores are handed down in much the same way, from parent to child. Among other things, Akan girls learn how to cook, as well as clean from their mothers. Besides parents, grandparents also may play an important role as instructors, teaching the finer points of household chores. Besides having ways to pass on important information and values, all cultures have at least one religious tradition, or a philosophy that helps guide its members' behavior. Religion also addresses the spiritual side of human existence. In many cultures, various religious traditions are grafted onto each other, or combined. Most Niska are Christians, for example, but many of their native ways of worship have been incorporated into Christian beliefs. At one time, the Niska believed in totemism, that is, a belief in which each clan has a special, mythical relationship to a particular animal. Totemism is often found in cultures that feel a deep kinship with nature. Even though Christian missionaries brought different religious beliefs to the Niska, they still retain many of their native religious customs. Much the same can be said for the Akan of Ghana. Although many are Christian, British colonists brought Presbyterian and Methodist beliefs to Ghana centuries ago, the Akan still retain their traditional beliefs also. They pray to their ancestors and to spirits found in their lands, in the mountains, trees, and rivers. As with the Niska, the Akan feel a deep kinship with nature, undoubtedly because of nature's strong influence on their living patterns, and perhaps because they live in an area of breathtaking natural beauty. Religion in Russia is another story altogether. Before 1917, most Russians belonged to the Eastern Orthodox Church. In that year, however, a violent revolution overthrew the monarchy that had ruled Russia for hundreds of years, and the new communist leaders there vowed to destroy all religions, which they said were the opiate of the people. Communism, which denies the existence of a supreme being, became the official and only publicly tolerated belief. For more than a half-century, Russians lived under a system of government that actively discouraged religious worship. Today, however, Russian citizens can worship freely and openly. So, three factors, among others, that influence how people worship are nature, a culture's relationship to nature, and history. Technologies can be another factor that explains religious differences. When Spanish explorers came to the New World starting in the late 15th century, missionaries followed in their wake, converting natives to Roman Catholicism. One reason nuns and priests were able to convert native populations was the superior technologies, especially armaments, of the Spanish conquistadores. To this point, we've discussed 6 key ways in which all cultures are alike. They all have groups, methods to express ideas, information, and emotions, ways to obtain food, ways to pass on to the next generation what it believes to be important information and values, religions and philosophies that help guide behavior and address the spiritual side of humanity, and governments. The things of a society, its tools, clothing and shelters, and modes of transportation, are other important factors that help us analyze and understand cultures. Cultures whose technologies are highly developed have shelters, buildings for commercial and residential use, that require huge amounts of human energy, natural resources, and specialized technologies to build and maintain. The same can be said for methods of transportation and the infrastructures that support them: roads, rails, bridges, docks, and so forth. That is, high-tech equals complex transportation systems. Besides technology, geography also plays a role in transportation. St. Petersburg, Russia, for example, is built on 42 islands in the Neva River, and so boats are used extensively there to get around. It would be less likely for rivercraft to be found in the interior areas of Mexico, where there are no major navigable rivers. In societies with less developed technologies, methods of transportation are generally more limited, by animal-drawn cart, for example, or by foot. Cultures with technologies that are yet to be fully developed, such as those in Ghana, are also more likely to use natural materials, such as clay, to build their shelters. As you might imagine, economic resources, that is, the availability of money, is another factor that affects the things of a culture. Large buildings are common in societies with abundant economic resources. Climate is still another factor that affects the things of a culture, specifically how shelters are constructed. Because rain is so plentiful in Ghana, for instance, and because it's so warm there, walls are often open-aired. Roofing material, most often corrugated tin in that West African country, is hard and non-porous. Corrugated tin is also inexpensive. Most Ghanaians cannot afford anything more. Tools may in low-technology societies, the tools are very simple, or comparatively simple. Lack of funds is often a major reason for the use of low-technology tools. Advanced technologies require enormous amounts of money that simply is not available in many third-world countries. History also plays a role in the tools. Western societies, such as the United States, historically have played on technological advancement. In short, then, all cultures are composed of groups. All cultures have methods to express information and emotions. All cultures have ways to obtain food. and ways to pass on to the next, to pass on to the next, to pass on to the next generation what it believes to be important, information and values. All cultures have religions and or philosophies that help guide behavior and address the spiritual side of humanity. And they have governmental institutions to regulate behavior. Technologies, history, and the culture's relationship to natural forces, as well as geography and climates, can determine cultural similarities and differences. The things of a society may differ because of various levels of technology, history, geography, climate, and the availability of money. Knowing how climate and the availability of money. Knowing how cultures are the same and how they differ, and the reasons for those differences, help us understand our world and our place in it. Help us understand our world and our place in it.